The floating city of Luminara gleamed like a crystal beacon above the swirling clouds of its planet. Towers of translucent alloy stretched toward the twin suns, and shimmering platforms floated silently, carrying diplomats, guards, and emissaries from countless star systems. It was a city built on perfection, order, and centuries of tradition. And yet, today, a ripple of chaos stirred. Commander Elias Vance, a human, stepped onto the main platform. His presence alone drew all eyes. Humans were rare here, unpredictable, unruly, and often underestimated. He did not bow, did not flash any insignia of rank. He merely walked, steady and deliberate, as though the galaxy itself had nothing to say to him. Inside the grand hall, Queen Elira observed from her elevated throne. Her silver hair shimmered in the soft light, and her eyes, ageless and calculating, scanned the human before her. Beside her, Princess Calith shifted, small and restless, barely contained by the formal robes and rigid etiquette demanded of her. But when her gaze fell on Elias, something unexpected happened. He didn't announce himself. He didn't posture or preen. He simply moved with quiet confidence, catching the attention of the room. A hovering ceremonial drone malfunctioned, spinning wildly toward a cluster of dignitaries. Without hesitation, Elias extended a hand and stabilized it mid-air. The drone whirled harmlessly back into its designated path. The hall fell silent. And then, almost instinctively, Calith laughed. Not politely, not forced, but a sound so genuine, so unrestrained, that it reverberated across the chamber, shattering centuries of solemnity. Elias glanced at her, a faint smile tugging at his lips. A spark of recognition passed between them, an understanding that defied culture, protocol, and even logic. Later, amidst the palace's floating gardens, Calith approached him again. Crystal trees bent light into shifting rainbows, and exotic creatures drifted lazily in the luminescent air. She studied him like one might study an unfamiliar star, trying to discern the force that radiated from him. "You don't belong here," she said finally. "I get that a lot," he replied evenly, not flinching. "You're different," she said, circling him, eyes sharp with curiosity. "From what?" "From everyone." He tilted his head slightly, considering her. "That's usually how it works." Her eyes narrowed, her gaze piercing. "You didn't react to the room, the people, the expectations." "I've seen worse," he said calmly, staring out toward the horizon where the twin suns touched the clouds. "What's worse than this?" she pressed. "War," he said simply. Her curiosity deepened. "You've been in it." "Yes." "Did you win?" "I survived," he said, voice quiet but steady. For a moment, Calith simply looked at him, absorbing the weight of his words. Then, without warning, alarms blared. The energy shielding around Luminara rippled violently as the sky above the floating city erupted in red light. Enemy ships, sleek and deadly, cut through the atmosphere with terrifying precision. The hall erupted into chaos. Queen Elira's commanding voice echoed. "Emergency protocol activated. Defend the palace at all costs." Calith froze, unsure of what to do. Elias, however, remained unshaken. His eyes scanned the horizon, calculating, assessing, and anticipating. Every instinct honed from countless human conflicts kicked in. "Stay close. Follow my lead," he ordered. For the first time, Calith understood something about humans. They were not just fragile beings with soft bodies and short lifespans. They were fierce, unpredictable, and fearless in ways her own people had long forgotten. Elias moved toward the command chamber with unwavering purpose. Calith followed, curiosity mixing with awe. Her heart raced not from fear, but from a strange, unexplainable trust. A human, this human, had become their hope. And in that fleeting moment, the galaxy began to shift. Rules, traditions, and expectations. All of it began to feel fragile, almost irrelevant. Because sometimes a single human could change everything. The twin suns reflected off the palace towers, And Caliph realized that she had made a choice that defied centuries of expectation. A choice that would not only challenge the galaxy but shake it to its core. The story was just beginning. The alarms blared relentlessly as Luminara's floating city trembled under the sudden assault. Red streaks of enemy ships carved the skies, precision laser fire cutting through defensive shields like glass. Queen Elira's advisors shouted orders, their voices drowned beneath the chaos, but Elias moved like he owned the battlefield. Caliph followed close, her small frame dodging debris as she struggled to keep pace. How can you stay so calm?" she shouted over the roar of explosions. He didn't look back. Calm doesn't win battles. Planning does. The command chamber was a swirl of holographic maps and blinking alerts. Advisors argued over strategy, none daring to contradict the human. Elias assessed every vector, every ship's trajectory, every possible weak point. Within moments, he had formulated a plan that no alien council could conceive in centuries. "Divert the lower shields to concentrate energy on the North Tower," he instructed. "Then launch counter-drones in synchronized swarms. Use the gravity wells to slow their approach. Timing is everything." The aliens around him hesitated, uncertain, but Calipha's eyes widened. That's brilliant," she whispered, awe lacing her voice. Elias allowed himself a fleeting glance. "It's just basic physics and human stubbornness." As the enemy fleet closed in, the first wave of counter-drones darted forward like swarms of mechanical lightning. Laser beams cut arcs across the sky, some hitting targets, some grazing dangerously close to the city's edges. Caliph clutched a railing, barely breathing, as a drone spun past her, deflecting enemy fire with uncanny precision. "Humans think differently," she murmured. "They see possibilities no one else can." Elias grinned briefly, his attention unwavering. Sometimes, thinking differently is the only way to survive. A deafening explosion shook the northern tower. Smoke and fire billowed as enemy boarding pods descended. Caliph froze. She had been trained to fight alongside elite guards, but nothing prepared her for this. Then, instinctively, Elias grabbed her hand. "Stay with me. Follow exactly," he commanded. Together, they raced across floating walkways, dodging falling debris and laser blasts. Calipha's heart pounded, not from fear, but from exhilaration. Every step with Elias felt like a lesson in courage, a glimpse into the human spirit she had never known. They reached the North Tower just as a boarding team breached its defenses. Alien soldiers, large and menacing, stormed forward with plasma rifles raised. Elias didn't flinch. He grabbed a fallen energy staff and spun it like a baton, sending the attackers flying back with precise, calculated strikes. Caliph gasped. "You're incredible. I told you humans survive," he said, eyes scanning the room for the next threat. The battle raged around them. Drones zipped through corridors, lasers ricocheted off walls, and alarms screamed their fury. Yet Elias moved with calm precision, every action deliberate, every decision saving lives. Caliph began to see what the others could not. Humans were not fragile. They were resilient, unpredictable, and capable of facing impossible odds without hesitation. Then came the moment that changed everything. A massive warship descended above the city, its energy cannon targeting the central spire, the heart of Luminara. Panic surged through the defenders, but Elias's mind raced. "Caliph, help me with the drone link," he ordered. "What? How?" "No time." Working together, they interfaced with the swarm's command system. With Elias guiding her, Caliph synchronized the drones into a focused formation. The fleet above was caught off guard. The drones surged upward, converging like a storm of metal lightning, striking the enemy's weak points with surgical precision. The massive warship shuddered and exploded, sending shockwaves across the floating city. Debris rained down, but the northern tower held. Cheers erupted from the command chamber, but Caliph only had eyes for Elias. You did it," she breathed. He shook his head, a rare smile tugging at his lips. We did it. Humans can't win alone. But with the right allies. Kalith felt something stirring deep within her. A feeling she had never expected, one that transcended politics, war, and duty. Humans were chaotic, unpredictable, and sometimes reckless. But they had courage, ingenuity, and an indomitable spirit that could ignite hope in the darkest hour. Later, amidst the aftermath, Kalith watched Elias survey the damage. His face was calm, almost serene, but his eyes held the weight of every life saved and every risk taken. "You changed everything today," she whispered. "I just survived," he said softly. "No," she insisted, stepping closer. "You saved us. You showed me that the galaxy isn't bound by rules, and that sometimes courage doesn't need permission." Elias's gaze met hers. In that silent moment, Kalith realized that the choice she had felt stirring in Part 1 was no longer a quiet curiosity. It had become a certainty. The human beside her, so different, so flawed, yet so extraordinary, had captured something inside her that no alien protocol or royal decree could ever define. And as the twin suns dipped below the horizon, casting a fiery glow over Luminara, Kalith understood the truth. Humanity was not fragile. Humanity was spectacular. And in Elias, she had found a force the galaxy could never anticipate. One human standing against the impossible, changing everything. The war was far from over. But for the first time, Kalith felt hope, not just for survival, but for a future that no law, no tradition, and no enemy could dictate. Because some humans were simply extraordinary. The city of Luminara glowed under the twin suns, but the light could not hide the scars of battle. Smoke curled from shattered towers, and fires licked the sky. Yet amidst the devastation, Elias stood atop the central spire, surveying the remnants of the enemy fleet with a quiet, calculating calm. Kalith joined him, her small frame dwarfed by the ruins. They're retreating," she murmured. Her eyes scanned the horizon, lingering on the human beside her, the one who had turned the tide of war. "They are," Elias confirmed. "For now. But the galaxy doesn't forgive weakness." The city's defenses had held, thanks to a combination of alien technology and one human's ingenuity. Every laser fired, every drone maneuvered, every strategy executed had carried Luminara through impossible odds. Yet the victory felt incomplete. The enemies had not been defeated. They had only been delayed. Kalith looked at Elias, her voice trembling not from fear but awe. You faced them all. Alone. Almost." He shook his head. "Alone is never enough. It's the ones who fight alongside you that make the difference." His gaze softened as it landed on her. "Even the smallest ally can turn the tide." She blinked. "I never imagined. Humans. They're not supposed to be like this." "Why not?" he asked, tilting his head. "We're fragile, unpredictable, reckless. But that's what makes us dangerous. We see possibilities no one else can. We adapt. We survive. And sometimes we inspire." Kalith's heart swelled with admiration, respect, and something more. An emotion that had grown quietly in the shadow of chaos. Humans were not fragile. They were extraordinary. And Elias, he was living proof. Suddenly, a ripple in the city's energy shields alerted them. The enemy flagship had returned, more massive and more powerful than before. Its cannon glowed ominously, aimed directly at Luminara's heart. Panic surged through the remaining defenders. Elias's eyes narrowed. "This ends now." He sprinted toward the command hub, Kalith following. Together, they coordinated a desperate final assault. Drones formed a storm of metallic fury, energy cannons flared, and human intuition guided every maneuver. The flagship advanced, firing volleys that shredded entire districts, yet Elias predicted every movement, countering with strategies the aliens could barely comprehend. Kalith assisted him, interfacing with the drones to amplify their precision. The flagship shuddered under the combined assault, its defenses failing against the unorthodox tactics of one human and a small alien princess. Then Elias made a decision that shocked everyone. He would board the flagship. Alone. Elias, no. Caliph screamed, but he smiled reassuringly. Trust me, he said. This is what humans do. When all seems lost, we take the impossible risk. With a daring leap, he launched a personal assault pod toward the flagship. Laser fire erupted around him, but he maneuvered with precision, dodging impossible odds. Inside, the alien commanders were unprepared for his approach. Using human intuition, brute courage, and relentless determination, Elias infiltrated the bridge and disabled the flagship's core systems. The massive ship convulsed, then exploded in a brilliant cascade of light. Luminara shook under the shockwave, but the city survived. The enemy fleet retreated in total defeat. When Elias returned, Caliph ran to him. You did it. You saved Luminara. He laughed softly, exhausted but alive. We did it. Humanity doesn't survive alone. But when we fight for something greater, we become unstoppable. Caliph looked at him, realizing that survival was no longer the only measure of strength. Humans could inspire loyalty, ignite courage, and awaken hope in even the most hopeless hearts. And then, in a quiet moment above the city, she whispered something she had never dared to admit. Elias, I've chosen you, not because you're human, but because you are extraordinary. Because you've shown me a galaxy that's worth believing in. Elias's eyes widened, then softened. Caliph, I never expected, but I feel the same. Humanity may be chaotic, reckless, but it loves fiercely. And I think, I found someone worth everything. The twin suns set behind them, casting Luminara in a golden glow. The city was battered but alive. Its people cheered for the human who had defied the impossible, for the princess who had chosen courage over tradition, and for the hope that even in a galaxy ruled by chaos, one human could make a difference. In the following days, Caliph and Elias worked together to rebuild the city. Humans and aliens collaborated, inspired by what had been accomplished. And while the galaxy would continue to test them, Luminara had learned a truth that no enemy could erase. When humans and allies fight together, no force, not alien warships, not tyrannical queens, not impossible odds can stand in their way. And as Caliph stood beside Elias, watching the city rise from the ashes, she knew one undeniable fact. Humanity was spectacular, unpredictable, unstoppable. And the galaxy would never forget the human who defied impossible odds and captured the heart of an alien princess in the process. Because some humans were simply extraordinary.